We are back. Thank you, everyone, for those that have stayed on and stayed with us for the day today. We appreciate you. Our last session of the day, we've made it. I am happy to introduce three of our IAP2 USA licensed trainers. We have Cassie Hemphill, Justin Schneider, and Doug Zenn. I'm here to present and share some information in regards to all things IAP2 training. So, with that, I will hand it off, and I will go ahead and start sharing our slides for today.
All right, thanks, Shyla. And we're very excited to be here with each of you. I've been able to participate on and off throughout these last couple of days, and it's been great to see some colleagues we met previously, and I'm excited to connect in this way. So we're going to run through as many of these training options that IAP2 offers over the next 45 minutes. We're going to aim to go through them all in less than 30 minutes and leave as much time as possible at the end for anybody who has questions. We know that some of you, in fact, if you want to show a virtual hand, and Charlotte, we can wait on sharing the screen real quick. How many of you have participated in at least the fundamentals of public participation or more? You've taken at least one of the IAP2 core courses. All right. Yep. I know Julie has. Melody. Okay. And so since I'm only seeing a couple of hands pop up, we're going to assume that many of you have not done that already. Well, either way, this is the right session for you, especially because you're here and there are no other options at this rewind. So I'm dropping in the chat a link. This is the IAP2 USA trainers, the link I just dropped. So you can see all of us who do trainings across the United States. Cassie also does trainings across the world, working with international partners. And so you can learn more about us on that site. But I wanted to just say that I really connected to IAP2, the organization, through the foundations training back in 2019. And it has been a key aspect of all of the engagement work I have done since then. And it was such an honor and privilege to be through the next iteration that we're now calling the three core courses that lead us to the Global Certificate in Public Participation. And I am big on value. I want my money to count, and I have not come across a better value than these core courses, as well as the other courses that we'll talk about. So without taking up more space in this time yet, I'm going to pass it over to Doug, who'll give you a little bit more of the background of these trainings, as well as introduce you to the fundamentals.
Thank you, Justin. So the trainings, particularly the foundation, started about 25 years ago, actually. And I believe we're about on our fifth major iteration revisions of the classes, going from a one-day class to a two-day class to a four-day class to 5 days, and then being broken up into three courses that we currently have. The classes have since 2019 or 2020 gone online. So that was a first episode during the pandemic where we transferred it online to see if we could do it, and found out that in fact we can. It's still offered in person, probably not as often as you see on a training calendar, but individuals and organizations bring training to their organization. Some of our USA chapters also sponsor. I know Cascade chapter, where I am in Portland, is sponsoring one in the beginning of June. That's a come one, come all. Anybody can come. I think we're only doing two of the classes, but those offerings are there for you. The three classes that we have, fundamentals, design, and methods, get the certificate of participation. And then there are several other classes. Cassie's going to cover a couple, and I'm going to talk about public participation for leaders and allied professionals too, once we get going. But let's start with the fundamentals, right? It is, of the 5 days of training we do, it's the first day. and 1 day class or 2 days online, 2 half days online. And as it says, it really does deal with IAP2's fundamentals, and was one of the reasons for doing these trainings, that as IAP2 started to generate best practices, things like the spectrum, things like core values, things like our code of ethics. It was how do we share these? How do we have discussions about these that make sense of them, right? I mean, you can read them online, you can just Google them, but does it provide the depth of understanding that we're looking for, especially as we're applying these to our own projects and our own organizations. So fundamentals does cover, like I said, the frameworks and the major tools that IAP2 uses, and dives deep. And I might add that each of these classes, while we have curriculum and books to go along with it, one of the advantages of this is the interaction, right, with participants. And I've always thought that, well, we have a nice curriculum and we have great trainers, but really one of the benefits of the classes is that interaction among the class members, right? So some people would look at fundamentals and say, well, I've been at this for 20 years. I have found that the people who are experienced in fundamentals, working with people who may be new to the field, that interaction and sharing of what public participation means to them, how they're applying public participation to their different types of projects, is valuable for anybody. I've found the experienced people find that it's great to have the new people involved. The new people are appreciative of having, the experience in the room to talk about examples and so forth. So in addition to the spectrum, which is probably IAP2's most popular and most well used tool, we have core values, we have code of ethics, and we have our framework, which is starting to how we apply this practice and where it goes on to. So 1 day, like I said, interactive, and then people move on to the second. And I don't know, we can take questions if you have any along the way. If anything we're saying needs clarifications, we can do that, or we'll cover them at the end. So don't feel any pressure.
All the things I forgot to say in the intro, Doug.
No worries. Yeah, so please post your questions. And if you've taken the fundamentals course, please post in chat an insight, a tool, a moment that stood out to you. And we'll do this for each of the courses as we talk about them, just to find out from you if you've taken the course and if you have, what's one thing that has stayed with you. So Shyla, we're now going to move on to designing. If you would share those slides, and I'll wait for that to come up. There we go. So I'm Cassie Hemphill. I live near Missoula, Montana. I do most of my training online. In fact, I have been doing online training since 2013. So long before the pandemic, before COVID, I was doing training. And back in the day, let me just say, we didn't have Zoom. I remember when Zoom was first came out and was available, and it really changed my life. And certainly it's changed all of yours too. It allows us to participate from wherever we're at. And so one of the really nice things about online training is that you don't have to leave your desk or your office, or you can do it from home, whatever is most comfortable for you. And that gives more options to participants, especially participants who live, like I do, a long way away from the big population centers. It gives more options and it makes our training more accessible for folks. It's not to say that in person is not great, because it is. They all have their strengths. And so we just like to provide lots of different options. So designing public participation. This is where we're moving from those good intentions and best practices to creating a clear, defensible engagement plan. The course focuses on the design and plan phases of the IAP2 practice framework. And practitioners learn how to scope the engagement, identify the people and groups, map those communities, develop engagement goals and objectives, align the process with the actual decision being made. We spend a little bit of time selecting methods, but really that's the focus of a different course. In this course, it's about taking real life case studies and trying to write the engagement plan so that at the end of the week, we walk away with an engagement plan and process and really grapple with those differences, because plans are not all the same. Processes are all different, and some of them are easier and some of them are more difficult. And those difficulties and ease come in different places in the plan. So folks work together in small groups to develop those engagement plans, and they also get to interact like they do in all of our courses, get to know each other, learn from each other, and share their experiences. And if you've taken the course in chat, if you would post inside a tool or a moment that stood out to you from when you took the Designing Public Participation course. So in this course, of course, as we do with all of our courses, we spend time thinking about influence. How much influence does the public have? What is the purpose of engagement? And how can we center equity and inclusion? So with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Justin to talk to you about the next course in the series, which is Applying Methods.
Thank you, Cassie. I get to go up and hang out with Julie next week and one of our other trainers, also in Texas, Michelle Goot, and go through the Applying Methods training next Thursday and Friday. So, Julie, you're off the hook for talking about one insight, tool, or moment that stood out to you until next Friday afternoon. This is the course that some people describe this is the fun one, and they're all fun in their special ways, but this is the one where you get to kind of explore and experiment and try out all kinds of different methods. What I love about the Applying Methods course is at the start of fundamentals, we always say, well, what do you, or many of us will say, what do you hope to get out of this class? And people are like, I want to learn new methods. And I say, well, this is the fundamentals one, so stick around to Applying Methods, because in this one, we share I think it's upwards of 25 different methods, and then give you the tools for more than 80 different methods through the tips at a glance, methods at a glance, sorry, and then the method tip sheets, and then also the methods matrix. And the methods matrix is this fantastic tool. If anybody was here yesterday and heard Nicole's conversation about Charlotte, Nicole loved this matrix so much she typed up the version from the physical manual and typed it all up so that she could have it, because it ties the fundamentals and the designing and puts it into a method to make sure we are thinking about how are we talking to people? How are we gathering input? How are we connecting? So the Applying Methods one, you are working in a group, you're doing methods that help further the learning about methods. So it gets a little kind of meta, I guess you could say, in this concept. And then there are popular ones that a lot of us are curious about, whether it be World Cafe, card storming, or one of my favorite ones that I joke, it's not the latest dance craze. It's a great method for prioritizing, and that's 35 shuffle. And so what I really ask people to do during this Applying Methods is to get creative, get curious, and think outside the box. My main role is working with the city of Austin, doing engagement throughout this city. And then I also get to be an in-house trainer for Austin for IAP2. And it is very hard for us to break out of the mold of community meeting, survey, community meeting, town hall, survey. And so this is an opportunity to get outside of that space and really lean into those core values to ask, what is the best way to connect with community members in a way that they are also comfortable, not just us as the people delivering the method and trying to get the insight and input and influence from community, but what are the ways that work for them as well. So the methods is the one where you actually get to do it. Now, I am opened up by saying value. Many other trainings that I have paid a lot of money to do have been focused on particular methods. And while I think that's great, what I love about this is I get to get a lot of methods in addition to how to do the plan as a whole, so that I'm thinking about my project or my process holistically, not just method by method by method, but how do these methods build together and scaffold to create the big symphony of our engagement process. So that's why I'm excited to share about applying methods. In the chat, thank you. And there's, yep, Mary dropping out the breaking down the various stages of how we do this. This methods process is also one that you get to connect with people. And overall, that's what I love about all these, whether you're virtual or in person. Again, like Doug highlighted, you get to work with other practitioners from across the country to learn about what they're doing and then to do this fun work together. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Cassie.
No, actually, we're going to go to Doug next.
I'm just kidding. I'm going to pass it to Doug. I
And
knew
Justin,
that
just
too.
to add to that, and talking about all three classes, we talk a lot about goals driven or objectives driven. And even if we have methods that work tried and true for our organization that we've used again and again, like Justin talked about having value, can we make them work better? Can we make them work harder for us? I mean, I talk about when we're going through methods that we may talk about 40 methods specifically in here, but you're going to leave the class with 4,000, right? The mixing and the matching and grabbing a piece from one method and mixing it with another puts us in a mold like chefs, right? We've got all our ingredients on there and we can add a little more paprika just to make it just perfect, just a little bit better than it was otherwise. One other class that we have that is very related to these three is for senior leaders and allied professionals. And this is something that was organizationally driven. People requested it that, hey, when we had planning, what if I have people in our organization that are tied to what we do, but they don't do it. And I would like to share kind of the key elements, particularly the fundamentals, with our organization as a whole, right? So we do have a class that's probably a little bit more flexible than the rest of them, in that it's depending on time, depending on numbers, that we've delivered it to 12 people and we've delivered it to 80 people. Allied professionals, perhaps core people within an organization that need to know kind of, well, what are those public involvement people doing? What's the theories behind what they're doing? What is this spectrum? What are these core values? How do those core values relate to our organizational core values and so forth? So we have a class that I don't want to say it's like the fundamentals minus, but it's taking some of the core fundamentals and saying, which of these do you need as an organization? Or your allied professionals, people who work with us. Sometimes it's mixing of organizations and wanting to talk about kind of what values are we bringing to the project. And so looking at IAP2's core values sometimes helps us kind of align kind of a project's values together. So it's designed, and like I said, it's one that's probably not too far under 3 hours, sometimes 2 hours, for larger groups perhaps, and can be customized. We've had groups that come in for a short period of time, cover the fundamentals, and another half might stay a little bit longer for a little bit more discussion. But this allows us to kind of talk to broader groups and not necessarily the practitioners who are going to be doing this on a day-to-day basis. And then IAP2 has other classes as well that have come along over the last 10 years. And Cassie, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about those.
Well, before we go there, I just want to mention on these workshops. So first of all, if you have not hosted one of these workshops, but you think your organization would benefit, reach out to Shyla. I've got her email there in chat, training@IAP2USA, and she can help you set up these workshops, answer your questions, or any of our courses, right? That's what our staff is really great about, helping folks find a course or bring it to their organization. And I will just share that I actually did one of these workshops, the Senior Leaders course. I tailored it for nonprofit professionals, leaders, and delivered it at one of our nonprofit statewide conferences. So remember that engagement happens not just in traditional sort of organization-led agency contexts. Engagement is expanding way beyond those traditional boundaries. And so there's opportunities for us to share and bring these best practices to a variety of contexts. Okay, so Doug mentioned we've got some other courses. So Shyla, if you'll go to the next slide, I'm just going to introduce you to these. We have 6 specialized courses. The first 2 I'm going to mention are Understanding Conflict and Working with Conflict and High Emotion. So understanding conflict is really about developing your own skills, because conflict's inevitable in engagement. In fact, conflict is how we come up with better decisions, because if we all agreed, well, they wouldn't need us in the first place. They'd make the decision and move on. So oftentimes our communities don't agree on how to move forward. And the Understanding Conflict is one of those courses that helps you figure out not only how to develop your own resilience and how to understand and embrace the right amount of conflict, not too much, not too little, but also then how to design for conflict. And we have 5 different design aspects that we think through. In the Working with Conflict and High Emotion course, there we're really grappling with those really deeply polarized, challenging situations, and thinking about 2 ways. First is, how do we apply the foundations to these high conflict, high emotion situations? And so we've come up with some practical strategies that draw on the foundations and really connect them into our engagement processes and planning. And then we also spend time thinking about emotion and about those situations in which emotions are high, and how do we respond to those and help our participants move through emotions so that they can get to the place where we can then develop good outcomes, alternatives, solutions together. So those are our 2 conflict courses. And then our next slide here has our 2 DEI related courses. So we have Understanding People and Communities, and that's really about taking that understand people's activity in the practice framework and taking a deeper dive into that to really map out the community, understand how values affect our engagement processes, understanding those various aspects, and developing some strategies that help us center diverse values and perspectives in our engagement. And then we also have this course, DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, in P2 and Engagement. And there we take a deeper dive into DEI, thinking about what are those systemic barriers, what are those power imbalances that we need to address in our engagement, and really embedding equity into our processes and also into our own thinking as practitioners in our organization. The Understanding People course is a one-day course like fundamentals, 2 half days if you're doing it online. And the DEI course is a 2-day course or 4 days online, depending on where you're taking that course. And then one more slide, and it is our facilitating groups and making meaning course. So in the facilitating groups course, we're not just looking at in-person facilitation. We're also thinking about online facilitation because those practices draw on the same core concepts, but you have to approach them differently, right? You can't facilitate a group the same way online as you do in person. But that course is really about developing your skills and your confidence for facilitating engagement events and processes, because that's such a core part of the work we do. We bring people together. Okay, how do we design that? What's the purpose? What's the process? Who are the people? Putting those elements together. And then we have an opportunity to actually practice some of our facilitation skills. And that's nice because it's a small group. So it's a fairly safe, I'm going to put that in quotes, space to test out what you're learning. The other course I want to mention is our Making Meaning course, which we'll be bringing here to the US probably late this year, I believe. And the name is a little confusing. It's really about what do you do with all that input that you get in? Okay, I've got to analyze it. I've got to interpret it. I've got to make meaning out of it so that I can report it to my decision maker and they can use it as input that then influences the decision, the action, the impact, or the change. So we have both of those courses available as well. Facilitating is available right now, and Making Meaning will be available later this year. That's a lot of courses that we offer. And with that, let me turn it back over to Justin to see what sorts of questions you have. And Justin's going to facilitate some discussion for us.
Yes. Thanks, Cassie. And thank you, everybody, for letting us run through all of those things. The floor is open, and we, as trainers and facilitators, know how to be quiet. We're about to prove it to see if you have any questions. I'm failing the game I like to play, which is, can you wait? Can I outweight you? So I failed that. But I also acknowledge it's been a long 2 days for those who have participated in both days. Shyla is also here in case you have questions about what it would mean to bring a trainer to your space or to participate as a group. And we recognize that some of you have lots of things going on as well in the background. And so we acknowledge that as well.
Shyla, maybe you can point everybody, just as I doubt people had missed it if you've been on the IAP2 webpage. Training is a big part of that. And there's an ongoing training calendar that includes webinars, these classes, ongoing classes, and different offerings by IAP2. Shyla?
Yeah, definitely. Kaylin, I see that you put in the chat the link to our events and training calendar. So that is in there. As Doug just said, on top of all of the IAP2 license trainings this year, we have we've seen a robust amount of webinars come through. So we're happy to have webinars, which are additional learning opportunities, kind of those bite-sized 1 hour lunch, over your lunch break. We've brought in a few really great presenters from all over the US. And then you'll also see that we are partnering with Canada to share their webinars as well. So you have the option to jump on one of their webinars that they are sharing. We are also doing what we like to call something that's called a third party training. So these are trainings that are not an IAP2 licensed course. It's just kind of like in addition to public participation. So obviously not a licensed course with IAP2, but additional learnings in areas of this engagement practice that we feel aligns with our mission and vision. And so you'll see we've already offered a few. A big one that we offer is with Ann Carroll. Stakeholder mapping is always extremely popular. There's another one happening later in the year. We just wrapped up a course with Susanna. She's up in Canada, Susanna Haas Lyons, all around engagement, online engagement tools and strategies, which was also a really great training. We know trainings take time, and there's always a cost related to those trainings, and we know that sometimes that can be a barrier, but we are here, so always reach out to IAP2. We're happy to have discussions with you around training. If you're looking to bring training to your organizations, doing more in person, more tailored, again, to your engagement team, department, all the things. I think one thing we don't talk enough about is the Allied Professionals and Senior Leaders course that we do offer. So I'm happy we had the chance to shine light on that today. So for those of you who may not have known about that course, always insightful to learn and to bring back to your organizations to continue to bring the great work of IAP2 and share it. So thank you. Questions? Questions? Jokes? No, I'm joking.
That's what Justin is here for.
Yeah.
Justin is always our comic relief, which we deeply appreciate.
I did want to recognize that we have Mary Moreland here, who is also a certified trainer up in Canada. So nice to see your face, Mary.
You bet.